Hello everyone, welcome back to the JeepSolid garage. Today we're installing our AX15 manual transmission back into our 94 Wrangler. Got a brand new clutch in there. If you want to check out the series on installing the clutch, that'll be linked in the description below. But right now we're going to be popping this transmission back in. And the first thing we have to do, and honestly probably the most difficult, is get this transmission lined up at the same angle as the engine. So let's lift it up here. Let's see, yep, that's up. Now that we've got it lifted up fairly close, we're gonna be watching the input shaft on the transmission there and get it lined up with our clutch output shaft. Those fingers on the end of the clutch there, we need to make sure we don't bend those or jam into them too hard. So we need to go up a little bit more, obviously. We're gonna get that input shaft right into the center. And now your engine, if you look at your engine, you'll see how it's slightly tipped back. So we need the transmission at the same angle so it'll go in nice and straight. But honestly, it's a little bit of a battle to get it lined up perfectly straight. So you're gonna have to try a few different times. It never goes in smoothly the first try. Going up a little bit higher here. And we're making some good progress. We're getting it lined up pretty well. Another thing to pay attention to is line up your bolt holes with where it's gonna bolt onto the engine, and that'll help guide you that you're doing it nice and straight. So with quite a bit of moving and shaking, I got it lined up pretty good there. And one little tip, something I'll do, but you gotta be very careful, is I will actually get a bolt lined up on each side. Once the transmission is still like, about an inch away, I'll just make sure that bolt is lined up. I actually even have a longer bolt I'll use to line it up. What you want to be careful with those, you don't want to use that to like pull the transmission in. You don't want to get the bolt in there and just start cranking on it and pull everything in together, because if your input shaft is off just a little bit, if it's hung up on something, you can just damage your pilot bearing, bend your shaft. I mean, you can just mess things up. So don't use it to like pull the transmission into place, but just to kind of keep things lined up. Make sure there's still movement and play in it, Let's see if this will move at all. Kind of give it a shake as you're shifting it in together. Then I will, be very careful, I will use that bolt to just kind of pull it in slowly as I'm moving it, shaking it, pulling it in, making sure it's not hung up on anything, but be careful. And also on the top side, you kind of want to be checking your wires and stuff, make sure nothing's getting hung up between the engine and transmission. Just be careful what you're doing. All right, we got all the bolts tightened up for the transmission to the engine. Let's get our crankshaft position sensor back in place and we'll bolt it on. And because we're right here, let's put our clutch master cylinder in place. If you guys saw the previous video, you saw us working on the shift fork there. Put a brand new throw-out bearing in. Let's get this in place. You gotta make sure the tip of it there engages the shift fork. And we're just gonna push it on there and bolt it on. And this style clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder here, obviously the slave cylinder is external. There is another style, which the slave cylinder is internal. It's inside of the bell housing. It's not as convenient, obviously. This makes it super easy if you need to swap it out. And up on top of the transmission, the shift lever. Make sure we get that engaged down in there. And this little retainer. Push down and twist counterclockwise. You can kind of see. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. There we go. It'll go down and clip in there. There's a spring holding it, so we gotta use two hands on this part. And being that we're on this side, let's hook the exhaust back up. Just two little bolts. All right, let's hop over to the other side and do the starter. All right, here we go. Lift the starter in place. And two bolts, mine here are 16 millimeter. And a little correction there. It's actually 15 millimeter. And we'll hook the little wire up to the solenoid here. And then our bigger wire to the power. All right, starter is in. Now I want to test something. I'm going to hook the battery back up here. So this Jeep has been sitting for a few months because I've been working on this clutch project and a few other things for quite a while. So the question is, I do not have the transfer case in, obviously. No skid plate, transmission is on jack stand still, engine supported by a jack stand a little bit. And the reason for that is we're going to be doing a transfer case rebuild, and actually I have a slip yoke eliminator I'm going to be putting on this transfer case while I rebuild this. And there's my engine project. But because this has been sitting for a while, I want to start this Jeep and run it for a little bit. The question is, are we going to spew transmission fluid out the output shaft here? I'm going to guess no. It's down a little bit of fluid because I spilled quite a bit, but there is still a little bit of fluid in there. Let's start it up, see what it does, see if it drips anything. Put a little just-in-case cardboard here. All right, we are in neutral. And one of my favorite modifications I've done, my push start. And sweet, output shaft is spinning like mad. I am a little low on fluid, so I'll be topping that off later. But we are not spewing fluid out, that's good. But I just wanted to warm this up, run it for a little bit, because the fuel has been sitting there for a while. Let's get it up to operating temperature. So next will be the rebuild of that transfer case, adding the slip yoke eliminator. Also gonna have to get a new rear drive shaft for this. So be sure to stay tuned, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.